Interlude. Reflection. Trixie nods opened the door to the bedroom proper, just enough to poke her nose inside. She felt a little hypocritical for not knocking first, but she didn't really want to wake Twilight if she was actually asleep. A quick glance around the room told the bookish unicorn was missing. Curious, Trixie pushed inside, cast her eyes about for some sign of her partner. Twilight's pair of saddlebags still rested on the hoof of the bed, and her stack of books still sat across from her table, so she hadn't gotten far. Across from the room, the curtains that hung across the balcony floor fluttered in a gentle breeze. The door seemed to have been left open a crack. Trixie crept over and peered through the glass. It was dark out, but the pale moonlight was enough to illuminate the crouched, lavender figure on the balcony. Pushing open the door with her snoot, Trixie stepped outside, where she found her partner, knelt down facing towards the city. To Trixie's surprise, Twilight didn't have her nose in a book for once. In fact, she was looking up into the night sky, heedless of Trixie's approach, and nodding occasionally as if counting. "Twilight," Trixie called out gently. Twilight gave a start and turned her head. "Trixie, what are you doing out here?" The showmare smirked at having caught her off guard. "I was coming to tell you to stop studying and get some sleep. We have a big day tomorrow, after all." She paused to curl her lip in thought as she stepped up to Twilight's side. "But you're obviously not reading. What are you doing?" Twilight opened her mouth, but stopped herself short of speaking. After a short pause, she shook her head with a smile and looked out to the sky again. "Nothing really. I'm just thinking about tomorrow." "Care to elaborate?" said Trixie, standing over the cryptic unicorn. "Oh, you know, about me and the other competitors, finding out about the first event, meeting the princess." Twilight's casual tone died, and she tried to mask a cough. Despite her efforts, Trixie saw right through her. "Are you still nervous?" she asked, trying to sound sympathetic, even as she was a little miffed. Twilight flashed a goofy smile towards the horizon. "Of course not. I mean, after you poured your soul into that confession yesterday, it'd be pretty rude of me, wouldn't it?" Trixie drew back from the sudden jab. "Oh, you're making fun of the great and powerful Trixie," she said, looking her mane back and turning her nose up exaggeratedly. "Harumph! Maybe I shouldn't have said anything in the first place." Twilight giggled, which brought a smile to Trixie's lips. "Yeah, and I'd probably still be worrying," said the bookish mare. She proceeded to nuzzle Trixie's leg affectionately before going back to looking at the stars. The little gesture sent a warm feeling coursing through the showmare's fetlock. She was almost disappointed that it lasted only for a split second. Twilight's cuddles weren't exactly much of a rarity anymore, but that didn't mean Trixie enjoyed them any less. She reminded herself of the reason she had come out here in the first place, to tell Twilight to get some rest. It didn't seem like a few more minutes could do any harm, though. For her mouth set in a defiant line, Trixie knelt down beside Twilight, followed her gaze to the sky. The lavender mare cast her a sidelong glance and simply smiled when Trixie pretended not to notice. A few more minutes passed in companionable silence, then a few more, and probably a few more after that. Twilight couldn't express how grateful she was to have Trixie sitting there beside her. She hadn't realized it until the azure unicorn stepped down onto the balcony, but she really didn't want to be alone tonight.
If you know what I mean.
Maybe she was still a little tense from leaving Ponyville, and her tiredness was just making it seem worse. If that was the case, then maybe sleep would do her some good. Just as Trixie had suggested. But she wasn't ready to sleep yet. If she went to sleep, she would wake up with it being tomorrow, and tomorrow everything was going to happen all at once. She would never dream of putting it all together, of course, knowing how much it would mean to Trixie, but putting it off just for another hour couldn't hurt. As her mirror her side seemed to stir, she was considering something. As curious as Twilight was, she forced herself to keep silent and stare straight ahead, not wanting to put Trixie off. When at last Trixie spoke, it was unusual quietness to her voice. "Twilight, there's something I want to talk to you about." They both turned at the same time and their eyes met, before we get caught up in the display. Her tone made Twilight shiver a little. At the same time, she did her best to smile encouragingly. "Okay. I've been doing a little reflecting on my own, after our little conversation earlier," Trixie continued, glancing down at the balcony as she spoke, "thinking back to how we ended up here." Unsure where Trixie was going with this, Twilight simply tilted her head and waited. "When I first woke up in the hospital tent, after you found me," she added awkwardly, "I was confused and a little disoriented, but there's no excuse for the way I treated you." She gulped to force herself to meet Twilight's eyes again, though it obviously wasn't easy. Like you were taking advantage of me or something. It was the same again when you brought me to your home. Twilight immediately, awestruck, managed to shake her head. It's okay, Trixie. Boys can do silly things when they're scared, and not your fault. I wasn't scared, said Trixie firmly. I don't have any excuse. Twilight suggested side on her tongue. But even with the way I treated you, Trixie continued, you never stopped trying to help me. No matter how hard I pushed you away, you just kept being so annoyingly kind and understanding. The volume of Trixie's voice made Twilight a little uneasy. She gulped her reflex. Are you mad at me for that? Asked, not quite as casually as she intended. Trixie licked her lips and turned her gaze towards the city of Mainhattan. At the time, I might have been, but not anymore. You hadn't put up with me, hadn't kept trying to help me, then neither of us would be here now. Not on this balcony, not about to completely display. Not friends. Oh, said Twilight. It was more of a rasp, really. Mouth had gone completely dry. Must have been the cold night air. I'm glad, Trixie began, breaking off almost immediately, curling lip. I'm happy. She worked her jaw for a moment longer before letting out a sigh, stretching a felt-like to lay in front of her. There was a short pause before she muttered a quiet thanks. She was clearly disappointed with how it came out, but Twilight was just the opposite. It was an obviously got a thanks from Trixie, especially not one so profound. On a warm impulse, Twilight stretched out her own fetlock and crossed toes with Trixie. The touch sent and tingled through her body, a familiar and welcome, and she knew that Trixie felt it too. Yes, her unicorn turned her head to offer a questioning look, but she made no effort to pull away. Twilight couldn't contain her smile as she stared into those lilac eyes. It was the sentiment she thought and hoped her partner had been trying to get across. I'm glad I met you, Trixie. Geese! A split-second look of surprise that spread across Trixie's face before she melted into a smile was almost enough to make Twilight giggle with glee. Schumacher didn't say anything, for Twilight to know she felt it too. In that moment, Hope crossed and eyes sought to Trixie's under the gentle embrace of the moonlight. The book's mirror from Ponyville Library was struck by the ridiculously wonderful words. The warmth of Trixie's couch, the scent of her breath, the glistening of her eyes. Twilight didn't even think. She just felt as she were being drawn magically forwards. Yes! Bang! Frack! All at once, Twilight pulled her hoof away, shot upright and jumped backwards. What made her have been stricken from her mind, as she was cast out of the source of the noise. It wasn't hard to find the blinding light of the fireworks not too far off in the distance. I am going to kill them. The opening ceremony, Trixie breathed, getting to her hose a lot more casually than Twilight. Apparently, she had been unfazed by the sudden noise. How long have we been out here? Twilight tried to work her mouth a little before it could do any good. A little longer than I thought, she muttered. It must be past midnight. Trixie howled to turn to throw Twilight a mock glare. If I wake up grumpy, I'm blaming you for keeping me up so late. Me? Twilight said, creasing her brow. It took another moment for her to actually notice the playful tone, being startled as she was. Then offer a nervous chuckle. Oh, right. Well, I guess we better get to bed. With a little smile, Trixie nodded and led the way inside. Trixie closed the door behind herself and Twilight, doesn't tie on to muffle the next wave of firework explosions. This part of the opening ceremony, which was really more a simple celebration, was supposedly go on throughout the night, pausing in the morning shortly before the competitors arrived at the stadium. Luckily for the two of them, that left a half-decent amount of time for sleep before the big day. As Trixie crossed the length of the room, veering away from Twilight, headed straight for her own bed, she found herself adopting an excited smile. It all began tomorrow, only 4 weeks away, as it were. She pushed open the door that led out the bedroom with nary a second thought. As Trixie crossed the length of the room, veering away from Twilight, headed straight for her own bed, she found herself adopting an excited smile. It all began tomorrow, only 40 weeks away, as it were. She pushed open the door that led out the bedroom with nary a second thought. Trixie, Twilight called out suddenly. An eerie sense of deja vu washed over Trixie, but she tried to shake it off as she turned to her partner. The man in question had her forehost perched atop of the bedspread. She was smiling thoughtfully as she kept her eyes locked on Trixie. Do you want to share the bed? Said Twilight bluntly. Tracy's hose locked up. What? Twilight smiled and someone just falter. Well, it's gotta be a lot more comfortable than the couch, and it's playing big for both of us now that I think about it. Her voice softened a little. Not to mention, I kinda like the company. Tracy couldn't will herself to come up with a quick quip or smart comment to counter that. It's perfectly normal for Twilight thing to ask. Tracy wasn't surprised or flushed in the slightest. The room had gotten unnaturally warm all of a sudden. That was all. Tracy felt her bottom lip quivering a little. She bent down to make it stop. It wasn't as she didn't want to sleep on that wonderfully comfortable bed, but it's hard for her that fought against the idea. Sharing a room with Twilight was something he had been looking forward to since he first heard he was staying at a hotel. Sharing a bed he hadn't even considered. It would be close. Intimate, even. Sounds like the plot of a good hentai. Woo! Why am I even considering this? Tracy asked herself as the room grew hotter by the second. She shook her head off her Twilight and pained smile. Trixie, we'll sleep on the couch, she said, not casual soul mare. It might have been less awkward to say no thank you, but she didn't want there to be any confusion. Twilight opened her mouth as to argue, then closed it again, shook her head with a nervous grin. Right, of course. It was just an offer. She hopped up to the bed, sank gratefully to the mattress. Good night then, Trixie. Good night, Twilight, Trixie managed. She wasted no time turning to the door again, pushing it open, only stopping halfway at the threshold. Now that the initial discomfort of Twilight's offer had passed, Tracy began to register her words properly. I kinda like the company. Glanced back at Twilight, told that the purple unicorn was erasing the pills on her bed with a half-hearted smile on her face. Tracy curled her lip. Now as she thought about it, Twilight seemed a little off all evening. It wasn't so bad she looked like she needed another hug, but still. Idea struck Trixie. With an unbrilliant smile, she hurried out the bedroom. Trixie, I think this means Twilight's in heat. Run, girl! Twilight watched Trixie's veil vanish through the door with a solemn frown. She scolded herself for letting her mouth speak before her head again. She wondered whether she'd be upset her partner. Sharing a bed might be perfectly normal for Twilight and her friends back in Ponyville. Her relationship with Trixie was different. Everybody seemed to know that by now. You can't just go mouth off without thinking, Twilight, she told herself, striking a pillow with unnecessary force. What is she? She jumped in fright as something bashed against her door. A moment later, swung over to reveal something that looked very much like a... Is that the couch? She wondered aloud, hopping down from her bed to get a better look. Sure enough, she found that it was indeed the couch that launched partway through the door frame, with Sir Natural Unicorn on the other side, trying to ram it across the threshold. Trixie, what are you doing? Said Twilight, brow creased in disbelief and wonderment. What does it look like? Trixie grunted between pushes. If a girl and you be roommates, we should at least sleep in the same room, does he think? She stopped pushing, probably realizing she was only making it worse, and threw Twilight a look. Would you mind? Twilight blinked uply at her a couple of times, before breaking into a smile. Without thinking to say anything, she lit up her horn, magically reached out to touch Trixie on the couch, and teleported them both into the bedroom. The showmare hit the floor with a yelp, only for Twilight to pick her up a second later, and pulled her to a quick hug. Saying thank you would probably be silly, not to mention a little embarrassing, but Twilight was silently grateful all the same. As the lavender unicorn snuggled into her bed that night, she flashed a smile across the room. Trixie, whose head was resting atop a couch pillow, whose eyes were already half lidded, returned sleepily. Twilight would have liked to watch the adorable snowmare drift out to sleep. Probably her own eyes were drooping, as she knew she'd never make it. With sagging, she flicked the shroud over the firefly lamp by her bedside, and buried her nose into the sheets, comfortable in the knowledge that she wasn't alone. And I'm comfortable in the knowledge that Twilight was kept pure. Okay, no, I'm not. I was kind of hoping for some major Twilight and Trixie snuggles, but that's another story. See, I could get away with this stuff because Trixie ain't nowhere near me. Uh-oh.